Okay, good morning, everybody. Rock and roll. We're gonna get started here with the February Community Partner Team meeting. So we'll just allow time for people to introduce themselves. So I see several of you are already ahead of the gun here, or jumping the gun to introduce yourselves virtually. So that's awesome. Those of you guys that are joined that way. And so let's see, we've got Pamela. Pamela's gonna win the award, I think, or at least compete with Priscilla for perfect attendance. And then we've got Jenna. Welcome, Jenna. I don't know if you've been able to join us before, but good to see you. And then we've got Dana in the car Patterson. And so I know she's interested in this presentation, Adam, that you'll be given. And so I'll have to email that to her afterwards. And just as a quick reminder, if you ever miss, Leslie is really great about putting all the YouTube videos and putting them on our board website. So you can always go back and watch, or maybe just cycle through the screens that you want to see on information that's been presented. We've got Nikki with SkyTTC and Matt. So now I'm going to give a chance for those that are, and then Amy Smith Thomas, she's also one that would compete for the perfect attendance award. But I'm going to go ahead and let us go around here in the room. The device will work so you guys can see it. Okay, I don't want to fortunately. All right, we'll start with Jessica.
All right, Jessica Calvert, South Central Workforce Development Board.
Frank Airbauer, the one-stop operator with the Career Center.
Ana San Cristoful, New American Workforce Navigator for South Central.
Shannon Gotke, Career Team.
Adam Canada, Employment Program Manager for the International Center.
John Swords with the Workforce Board.
Laura Torres with the Workforce Board as Refugee Employer Engagement Program Specialist.
And then Brian Becker with the Workforce Development Board. So again, great to see everybody. We're going to jump right in here with what we usually talk about first, which is the breaking news. And so I will open the floor to anybody that has anything they want to share about any events coming up or something you want to make all the partners aware of right now. Anybody want to go first?
I have a question.
Yes.
There was something on Facebook, and I'll just read it to you. It says, I didn't post this. It says, I have a neighbor that needs a job. She only speaks Spanish, and I've been trying to help her apply for jobs. And I wanted to just share, but I wasn't exactly positive what I wanted to tell them. So can I get that information from you? Because I know you guys have people that work with just this population.
Yeah. So somebody seeing a job, where are they based out of?
Bowling Green.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead, Ann.
Well, usually the participant or the New American participant that speak Spanish, come at the office, but we make an information meeting about the different companies that we are working and help and support people to make the application in these companies and give all the information what is the requirement, to apply at these companies. In this case, that have to contact at the office and incorporate and make the registration for the list and these different information meetings that we make twice a week in Spanish. And for Swahili community, we make twice a week in Swahili too.
So if I had wanted to respond on this feed to tell her, hey, if you contact, who would I tell her to contact?
Ana San Cristoful.
I'm sorry?
You have to contact me, Ana San Cristoful.
Okay. And your email? Everything's on the South Central website,
Ana
right?
at, yeah.
That's
we
good.
put it
You
in the
put it
chat.
in the chat.
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's good. Type it in the chat for you, Pam.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. And I will pass that on.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Pamela,
Thank you.
Pamela, just a tip, if you can either send her the link to the page that has Anna's info on it, or send her a direct message with Anna's email address, just because once you post an email address on social media in the comments section, it opens it up to a lot of hacking.
Well, and so this is on a group called Spotted in Bowling Green. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, I'm not gonna lie, it's 80% just mindless drivel, but there's
Oh, yeah.
20% that sometimes people do need help and you do learn something interesting. And that's where I
Yes.
saw that this morning, although it says it was from yesterday. And I'm just wondering if you might not want to consider posting your flyer or your information on that website as a means to let people know that you do help people find jobs. And and specifically, you do help with foreign speaking people as well, because I don't think that is getting out there to the masses.
Okay, yeah. I follow all those groups. It sounds like I missed that post because I try to respond to all of them, when we can offer a service. But just as a general rule, if they ask for, contact information, like Anna's email or cell phone, and I mean, I wouldn't send her cell phone, but I only do that
Right.
through direct messaging. So thank you for seeing that. That was just one that I missed. But yeah,
Not a
I'm in
problem. I
all
didn't even know
those,
you were
I'm in
following
all
it.
those awful groups. And know all the gossip of Bowling Green as a result.
Yeah, it's quite tantalizing.
I have something.
Yes,
Let me get on here real quick. Sorry. We have our first, let me read the flyer that Leslie worked hard on, and I appreciate that. We have our first targeted service orientation class, and there we are. And I'm very excited about that. And I think we're going to do really well. I hope, fingers crossed. And I also want to give a shout out to Pamela, who called me this morning. We have our Relatives Raising Relatives committee class, I guess you can call it, on February the 16th. And Pamela is going to come and visit me. I'm part of that board of raising the grandchildren. And so she's going to come and hand out flyers, because most of the people, relatives raising relatives are grandparents. I mean, I hate to say that, it's kind of sad, and they're usually 60 to 75 years old, raising anywhere from, most of them are 10 to 17, 18. So Pamela's going to tag team with me on that day. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep this up here because I know this keeps getting added to as far as our monthly meetings, a slide that's talking about these classes because they are so exciting. So again, if anybody is just tuning in and hasn't caught up the last several months, there is an effort to activate the existing network of state-run, usually they're state-run entities. I think there's a few exceptions to that. And normally these state entities will get together when an employer is unfortunately maybe closing, and they do something called a rapid response, but this is a very similar concept, but it's trying to get after people that maybe go to these common places like these adult ed centers or something that's driven in the community, but it's a, hey, come in, no obligation. Come hear about all the services that exist, and it's trying to connect them directly in each county. So right now it's turned on a regular basis and that regular rotation in the 4 counties that you see. And so obviously it's not expected that partners especially would have this memorized, but if you're involved like Amy is, when it's happening. And some folks like Shannon go to all of them every month. And so these are definitely available also on our events tab on the Workforce Board website. So in addition to when Shannon provides career coaching one-on-one with her and resume assistance, you can come, and anybody off the public that's not already involved with any of these things can come. So it's a really cool concept that started to happen and launch in the fall, and now it's launching more and more each month, trying to add more counties in the South Central region to it. So.
And one more thing, Brian, on our events tab, and this is for desktop, it works best in desktop. If you enter in your county name in the search bar, then you can discover, the events happening that we have record of for your county. And you can always there's a spot to submit an event. So if you would ever like to do that, feel free as well.
Awesome. So if you did a search for the word Shannon, you get 949 results.
least.
You get like all the last 5 years, and you get all the next 5 years, dates where she's gonna be, yeah. Well, thank you for that, Amy. I did want to say there was some news that I had, which is number one, and you heard Laura say this, but we did want to introduce Laura. And this new role that she has, so Laura's been part of us for a while, but she was working under a training provider here across the whole state, and we've now snatched her to work for the Workforce Board. So welcome, Laura. Yeah, so excited about that.
Looking forward with working with local employers, so please open the door when I come knocking.
Yeah, so Laura's in a role where we've got a grant that's helping companies that have refugee employees. So it's not really a job seeker grant as much as it is an incumbent worker grant, but we have a goal of how many we have to get each year. We've started conversations with one employer. We can do about one of these at a time, but it can be workplace ESL, it can be something specific that the company wants, and we've got funds that can help the company offset expenses for that. But mostly provide the person with Laura as a coordinator and a liaison for the project. So it's really exciting, and we're working with the Louisville Workforce Board on that as well. So we were both awarded it. Kentucky got the grant. There was an entity that does resettlement. We're gonna hear about that today. Up in Louisville, and they wrote the grant, but they're subcontracting it with us and with the Louisville Workforce Board. So, and then also related to news, Amy Smith Thomas again, who's been in a capacity with adult ed and still is now a new board member with us. So congratulations, Amy.
Thank you all so much. I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to doing all I can do to help. On that note, I have to share something real quick. I just looked at my Facebook page about the targeted service orientation class, and I have 29 shares. So that we're doing pretty good. So we'll see how many more shares we can get by the end of the day.
Good.
Are you asking all of us to share it, Amy? Is that what I heard you say?
I would love for you all to share it. I would like
Yeah,
to.
oh yeah, because it is, because a lot of the students come from referrals. I usually wait until, just a few days prior to the event to really start pushing, sort of as a reminder to the people that have signed up. But yeah, I'll be pushing that out today, and also the one Friday for MedCap.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you all.
You're welcome.
All right, so I wanted to also just kind of give an opportunity. We always talk about things coming up, but also just to reflect on the recent history. So on the 17th, which was oddly one of those days that some of us could go back to work, because that was when Bowling Green was shutting down for ice, right? And it still continued to as the week went on. But on Wednesday, we had just happened to plan a big job fair at the Career Center. And some of us were not so optimistic about what the turnout would be, but Frank, I'm going to turn it over to you. Can you tell everybody that doesn't already know what the turnout was that day?
Yeah, another successful job fair in terms of the number of folks who came in, despite the 15-degree weather outside. We had 346 total job seekers enter the building, which is really great. It's more than we had last year at this time, at the January job fair last year. And there were 8 employers on site. Of those 346, we had actually 370 face-to-face contacts with the 8 employers that were there. Shout out to the International Center, who really assisted us at this time. They provided us with 2 Spanish interpreters, 1 Burmese interpreter, and 1 Swahili interpreter. If you look at the numbers that showed here and the face-to-face with the employers, it really looks like a lot of these job seekers needed language assistance, and they were basically looking specifically for 1, maybe 2 employers while they were there. Again, shout out to everybody who assisted in this, including employers. I see Jenna, who's there. She represented Bendix. But again, to us, it was just another successful job fair with those 346 folks in the really, really cold weather. It warmed up the building with all those folks there.
Yes. And I'll just say, I mean, we have a targeted job fair that we do annually for new Americans, but this would mark the 5th job fair in a row that we have had a large turnout of new Americans coming.
Yes.
So our 2 that we do count, and then the last 3 at the Career Center have also had a majority, what seemed like, limited English. And so this is who's coming. This is who wants to work, and we collect information about their employment status, and a lot of them are not working at the time that they're coming. But very necessary assistance needed to help get them into good jobs. And obviously, we want to make sure that the companies also know that that's going to be the case, and we don't always know who's going to come in when we open it to the public. But now we've got a year and a half and 5 events worth of info to know this is who comes to job fairs when you put it out there, so. All right, so again, I just want to thank you, especially the International Center for that, because that's much needed assistance to be able to do that. All right, and then speaking of job fairs, so we'll have another one. We've had this approach now for, this is going on 3 years going into this year that we've done these things called Talent Tuesdays. So we'll have one in Monroe County. Coming up the day before Valentine's Day. And look at this new flyer. This is the main thing I wanted to show everybody. Look at Leslie's new flyer. I know she's probably tired of looking at these things too, because she puts them on social media so much. But that's a very attractive, glowing flyer. I can just feel the neon buzz or hear the neon buzz when I look at it. So it definitely gets my attention, but help us spread the word for that. And just as a quick aside, Leslie had fun with AI, job fairs, and then she commentated on it. So this is what she put on our Facebook page here a couple of weeks ago. But I just thought it was hilarious that there's melted Sour Patch Kids in orbit. So, and there's a rainbow Sherbet with Post-it notes on it. So it's exactly what it looks like. So basically, we give employers advice about how to do job fairs. This could be now what not to do. Is to have an unusable ladder and knock off Oreos. But Leslie, you want to say a couple of quick words about this?
Well, I'm working on a job fair, best practices kit, and it's pretty much done for the most part. And what I was trying to do was find pictures of not so good job fair examples. And there were so many that the companies were clearly identifiable and all that kind of stuff. And so my thought was, oh, maybe I can just type in some stuff and let AI generate these images so I don't have to worry about somebody saying, you used our image, and all that kind of stuff. So yes, this one was good. The one, you need to go back and look at the post. It's just funny. AI will take us over eventually, but no time soon when you get results like this.
Right.
But Brian, I'm glad you appreciated my very sorry efforts.
Right.
I thought it was funny too.
Let me just pause real quick because I know I went kind of fast. Does anybody else have any other updates before we get into this month's topic? And I'll just once again say a plug that if you do, make sure you send those to Frank. It's just so much easier to look through an email in your inbox from Frank than to figure out who was that person that sent that email about that thing that I can't remember when they sent it. And so if you just search by Frank at Career Team, maybe you'll have to your way of finding out about a job post that he shared or an event or something like that. And of course, follow us on Facebook too. Leslie does a fantastic job of promoting a lot of the things that are going on, especially with the job fair stuff. But at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Adam Canada and let him introduce himself and give a presentation on the International Center of Kentucky.
Hi, everyone. I'm used to standing up when I'm having a presentation, but I think it might be better if I stay sedentary. We'll see how it works. I might feel the spirit and get up and stand, but my name's Adam Canada. Like I said before, I'm from the International Center. I'm the employment program manager there. But a little bit about me. I come from the Appalachian Mountains in Eastern Kentucky, and then came here back in the early 2000s. Got my start actually working in career placement when I did an internship at Goodwill Corporate in Nashville. So that was my start to that. Came back to Bowling Green after I lived in Nashville, and I've worked the past few years at Life Skills. Part of that time, I worked as an employment specialist and career placement with folks that were struggling with substance use and mental health issues. And then I moved into the recruiting part of their human resources there. So I've seen both. I've been the recruiter looking for folks to work, and I've also been the person doing the job placements there as well. So I've kind of been able to see the well-rounded picture. And a lot of times that's helped me because when I'm going into do job placements with human resources like Jenna, I met her last week, that I can kind of know what to expect and what they're looking for and what they're having to think about on their end. So that's just a little bit about me. I started working at the International Center as the Employment Program Manager back in October. And I've been there since. So I've been there through the new transition to the new building. If you ask Brian or anyone who's been in the employment program office before, it was a little probably 10 by 15 office. And that's where we did everything for employment. And now we have our own office. We have some beautiful conference rooms. At some point, we will have an open house now that the furniture is there and everything is there for everyone to come through and to be able to see what we do and where we're doing that at. Okay. So far, is everybody hearing me okay? And okay, great. So yeah, Brian, if you want to start really what my role is at the International Center is to prepare new Americans for employment. So there are different programs at the International Center. Some of you may be familiar with it. We may have case management services. We could have youth mentor services, but my service in particular is to prepare folks for employment. Okay. So a little bit about who we actually have real quick. Some of you that were there last week at a meeting that we had, Albert spoke about the populations that we work with and how we may have some new populations coming in. I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But to be clear to everyone, because I think sometimes there is some confusion about the populations that we work with. The population in particular that we will be working with are folks that are documented and are here legally. That is what we will work with in my employment program. Now, other programs may have other populations that they work with, but as far as my program with job placement, they must be here legally, okay? There are program eligibilities for these folks when they get here. So they must attend ESL classes, English Second Language classes, when they get here with us. So they'll come through Virginia, they'll have their placements where they're supposed to go. Some folks will go to Iowa, some folks will go to Arizona, some folks will go to just different parts of the United States. The folks that come in with us, we have ESL class from Monday to Thursday. And one of the requirements is that they must attend that ESL class to be able to work through me in the employment program. Another requirement is that they have to do weekly orientation classes with me to prepare them to enter the workforce. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. They must be enrolled in services here with us. And then again, they must have legal status here in the United States. And that's really our program eligibility. Brian, if you want to go next for me. It's okay. Something that I will start talking to them about, which I think is really important, is transitioning from their old life to their new life. Because when you're taken from where you are, you're placed somewhere new, there's not a lot of transition that's going to happen there. One day you're somewhere else, the next day you're on an airplane and you're somewhere else. You don't know the language, you don't know the people, you don't know what's going on. Some of these folks could have seen and experienced a lot of tragic events before they got here. It's confusing for them already. Especially if they come from a rural area from the countries that they're coming from. And so something that I really try to do is start talking to them about transitioning from your old life to your new life. Brian, if you'd like to go to the next slide for me. So what we will do in my department are called employment orientations. So we have 5 of them. The first one is our intake. So we will go to the home that they've been placed in or the apartment that they've been placed in. Joseph, usually my assistant, will be the one that will talk about our program. We will look at the folks that are there and who is wanting to be employed and who is employable. So someone may come over and they may be 69. Well, they may not be able to be employed because of health concerns or age. I may have some folks that might have disabilities. We'll have to work through who's employable in that. So the intake is our first gateway into meeting the family or the folks that are here. And then Joseph will do an intake report. And then they will meet with me usually the following week or the week after that to start doing employment orientations. So the employment orientations happen during the English as second language classes. So for you folks that aren't familiar with how the International Center works, we have buses that go around Bowling Green and pick up new Americans, and we bring them to the English as second language classes that are in the new building that we have across from our old building in a huge English as a second language classroom. We have two levels. One level is going to be for beginners. The other one will be for intermediate English speaking. And so during that time, we're able to go and collect folks for the different programs that we have when we need them. And that's usually when I will go and collect folks to start their employment orientations with me. The first orientation that we do is preparing for employment. So this is that transitional class, which I'm going to talk to them about how your life is going to be different. There are going to be different cultures that you're going to be exposed to here. It's not going to be as homogenous as it may have been at the country that you were in before. And I will tell them you're going to be exposed to folks of different religions, language, races, and you're going to have to be able to work next to those folks in a workplace. Personal hygiene is something that we're very big on explaining the expectations that we have for personal hygiene here in America, because it's different in every country. Personal hygiene in France is going to be different than it is in Bolivia, which is going to be different than it is in India, right? And it's the same way coming from these different cultures coming to America. Overcoming language barriers, obviously, covering topics from preparedness documentation to the path of employment. But I really stress personal responsibility. I let them know in these classes, in that very first class, that there are many people who would love to be sitting in the seat that you're in right now. And I want you to remember these people when you're going through your journey here in America, and that you have the ability to make your life what you'd like it to be. And that's what we really want to concentrate on. So that's what we talk about in that first class. Second class, I go a little bit deeper. So I always tell them, next time you see me, it's going to get more complicated, and I really want you to be able to ask questions. So we start talking about diverse employment types. So do you want to go to a restaurant maybe? Do you want to go work at a factory? Do you want to go work as a nurse's aide in an adult care home? What do you want to do? But we also start talking about planning your workday. So what shift do you want to work? Are you a husband and a wife and you need childcare and you don't have that? Are you going to have to do separate shifts? We start talking to them about planning your day ahead of work. It's not just about work. It's about waking up and preparing for work. Anyone who's worked with New Americans will know they have a different view of time and what that means. And their time and your time might not always be the same time. So I have to teach them what we expect here in America. Again, talk about hygiene. You will see I will talk about that throughout. I will also explain to them about pay cycles. They may be used to working a job, and at the end of the day, somebody comes and places cash or money in their hand, and they go about their day. The thought of having to wait for a week or 2 weeks and then getting a paycheck in a bank account somewhere that's not physically where you're at, and then having a magic card that will give you money is something that they're also not used to. Okay. And then I will also talk about employment rights. If you work an 8-hour day, you're entitled to breaks. You're entitled to a lunch break. I will explain to them what those are. I also explain to them about discrimination. I explain to them about what their rights are as employees. So that they understand that in America, we have rights here, and these are the expectations that I expect from them, but they also must have expectations for the employers that they're going into. Third class goes a little bit deeper, gets a little bit more complicated. I will talk about setting up a bank account, what a bank account actually is. I will talk to them about gross pay and net pay. I will talk to them about taxes. That is a comical conversation to have sometimes, because when you're trying to talk to them about what you claim on your taxes, if you're single and if you're married, and the difference of money that might be taken out of your paycheck. For them to even start to think about that is just so foreign, but they really, really try to soak up the information, and we go into that. I also talk about, again, individual responsibility when it comes to now you're viewed as an adult out here. If you sign a document, you must read it. You must have someone help you with it, because at the end of the day, when you sign your name on the dotted line, it's your responsibility for that. Also pay stubs, what that information has on it, choosing health insurance, understanding how much it costs in America to go to the doctor without a health insurance, so that they understand what health insurance does. And then the last thing that I'll talk about with them is preparing them for an interview. So before the end of the understanding paychecks, taxes, and benefits orientation, I will tell them next week, I want you to come dressed, and I have usually a board. You can see some of it there in the circle at the end that has folks dressed up for a work interview. And I will tell them, I expect you to come dressed in an interview like these folks are. And I will help them find the clothes before they leave. We have donations there at the International Center, and tell them what I expect for them to be dressed in. And then they will come and we will start to talk about the skills that they've acquired. They sometimes think they don't have skills for jobs here when they get here, but I talk to them. Some of them have worked in construction where they've been before. And also, I don't always have people at the International Center that come through as refugees that have lived in some rural community somewhere. Some of these folks have been teachers, nurses. They've worked in government. They're not just coming from a very rural community. Some of them have lived in other communities, but have just been displaced because of whatever political situations happen. I'll also talk to them about what their skills are. So what are you bringing here? If you've been a grandmother, or if you've been a mother and you have 5 kids, you have time management. We can work with that. If you've been someone who's helped build before, you have construction experience. If you've someone who's worked in agriculture before, you have experience. And helping them identify that, what those experiences are, so that they can bring them into an interview with an employer. And then we'll do some mock interview questions with them. I will actually stand up. Joseph and I will be in there, and we will show them what we're wearing, what they wore that day. We'll go through, okay, let's pick out what we could have changed about your outfit today. Let's pick out what we've done great about your outfit today, so they can understand what it is to be going through that. Something I didn't talk about, just to back up on preparing for employment, that I'll also do is nonverbal communication. And that's something that we do throughout all the employment orientations. So I teach them that first orientation, how to shake someone's hand. I'll talk to them about eye contact. I'll talk to them about body posture. I'll talk to them about smiling. And so what I expect, and what I tell them I expect every time they come through to meet with me, is that we maintain eye contact when you're in the room. Your posture. I want you to be smiling. I want you to prepare and act like you're going into an interview, so that when you get to that point in time, you know what to do. I also give them deodorant, toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, and have the expectations met of these need to be used when you come in to meet with me, so that you are already getting in the daily use of being able to do those things. And so by the time we get to the interview skills class, we've had 4 weeks usually that we've been doing these things. So now they're ready. By that time, they have their social security card, which is what we prefer them to have for a job, but we will go forward with employment even if they don't have their social security card. And they have their identification, and they're ready to go, and they understand what they're doing going out into employment. But again, this is a 4-week process. This is barely the tip of the iceberg on what it is to live here. And so I try to get as much as I can in those hour or so classes with them to help them understand and be somewhat prepared to go into work here in America.
And forgive me for.
No, you're fine.
These are done in groups, or they're done more by family or individual?
They're done in groups.
I thought they were.
Yep.
Okay.
They're done in groups. Now, sometimes if I have someone who will miss a class or something like that, we will do them individually.
Yeah.
It just depends, just to catch somebody up. But normally I have Monday, I do the first orientations. Then next week I do number 2 on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, I do the 3. And then on Thursday, we do number 4. And then Fridays, we actually go backwards. Joseph does a lot of the intakes on Fridays since the office is not there. Because I come from mental health and working in mental health, I am bringing that perspective to the International Center and how important it is. Just like anyone else, when someone is suffering from mental health episodes, that can very quickly turn into addiction. Sometimes some of these folks may not have been processed as intensely as they should have been coming over, and they may already have some of those issues when they get here. You know, sometimes government, all of us know how that works, and sometimes it just doesn't go as in depth as it should. And so I make sure that I talk to them about that as well, because I want someone to be physically healthy as much as mentally healthy. Again, I always talk to them about cultural differences that they're going to see here. You're going to be around a lot of different people. That's something I don't think we think about sometimes as Americans. For these new Americans and the folks that are coming through the International Center, they may never have seen someone who looks like you before. You will notice they may be staring at your eyes, or they may be looking at your hair, or they may be just looking at you in general because they may have never seen someone who looks like you before. They are not used to people having a lot of different religions than they do. They have strong belief systems culturally about where they're coming from and what they are doing. But again, a lot of times I will find that these folks are ready to be a part of that mosaic that we have. What I go into personal hygiene, just real quick, just so that you all know, is I talk about bathing every day. That may not be something that they're used to. Clean clothes. Anyone who's ever worked with any new Americans or who has went around the community here, you may always see some clothes being put across trees or clotheslines or different areas at different places around the community. That's how a lot of them will dry their clothes. So I have to explain to them it's winter time. Your clothes aren't going to dry if you do that. And explaining to them about making sure that you clean your clothes every day, because even if you wear deodorant or you bathe, the clothes may not be clean, or they may not dry. And so I'll talk to them about that. I'll also talk to them about deodorant. Some of them have never seen deodorant before. That's not culturally something that is available or even a part of the culture where they're from. And then hand washing, just to make sure that folks are understanding the etiquette for hand washing that we expect here in America, and then brushing your teeth. Again, the nonverbal communication that I go through with them, handshakes, smiling, eye contact, posture, active listening. Sometimes for them to look you in the eye is disrespectful, depending on where they come from in the world. Sometimes a woman shaking your hand as a man or vice versa could be very strange for them. And so having to take them through that and what they expect and what we expect. Collaborating with other programs, just like this program, but also programs inside of the International Center that we have. But other programs, because my personal responsibility and my program to begin with is to make someone independent and self-sufficient in a particular period of time, so that the money they're granted here as a new American will not run out before they're able to start working and generating income for themselves, because we only have funds for a limited amount of time for these folks. So I have to make them independent. So sometimes people will ask me out in the community, well, why do we put them in factories? Or why do we put them in a restaurant? Or why do we put them here? And I say they will have time in the future to be able to look for jobs that may be the experience that they're wanting down the line. But my personal responsibility is to make sure that they have income coming in before their money runs out. And so sometimes the quicker places that we're able to do that with, that will provide transportation and provide interpreting services, maybe a factory or maybe a restaurant, or maybe somewhere that's just somewhere to give them some work experience, to give them a taste of what it's like to work in the community at these different jobs, so that they're having these experiences and they know what it is to be working out in the community. So then when they want to go to the job that they actually really want, and they actually know what it is to get up and get ready for work and to be on time and to take a lunch break and to have benefits and health insurance, then they'll be able to move forward into that. And we can collaborate with the other programs that are here, like the one that Heath is a part of, or you folks, to move them into other positions, okay? I also talk to them about being prepared. I tell them first off that America is very busy, it's very fast paced, and that you have to pick up the pace because if not, you get left behind. And I talk to them about the fact that there are going to be challenges. It's not an if but when situation. One day your tire may be flat. One day you may have missed an appointment, or one day something just might have happened, and you're going to have to be able to maneuver and change direction and go forward, because if you freeze up or if you're waiting for someone to come help you, that might not always be the case. Again, what I talk to them about over and over and over again is independence. I want you to be able to do something for yourself so that if someone does help you, that's great. But if not, you're able to stand on your own 2 feet and move forward with what you need to do. Okay. I also talk to them about the documents that are required to work so they understand that. I make sure that they keep these in a safe space. I make sure they understand what those documents are and why they're important. I take them through the road to employment. Again, their timeline for things may not always be your timeline. And sometimes they may not understand as new Americans why they put an application in an hour ago and no one's called them back. Or why someone's not called them back the next day. And as Jenna and other people who are in HR know, sometimes it takes time and you've got a lot of applications and you got a lot of people coming through. So I always have to explain to them that just because you put an application in doesn't mean that somebody's going to call you back for an interview tomorrow. Okay. Even though you see on Facebook that they're hiring, your brother tells you that they're hiring, it doesn't always mean that that's going to be the case.
I guess that's kind of a compliment to the US system, though. They think that things do move that fast.
Yes, yes.
Let them do too.
Yes, we would. And so I go through what the road of employment is. I explain to them what an application is, that it is a report of their information, basically. I explain to them what the interviews are. Some jobs that have job previews, some factories that we work with will have job previews, so that they are able to actually say, yes, I want to be in 35-degree temperature doing this job, or whatever, or 98-degree temperature in the summertime. Then about job orientation, and then starting your first day of work. So wanted to talk to you all about some challenges that we face and then some successes. So challenges, as Brian has already seen me talk about before, is transportation. If someone is a new American and they don't speak English, that's obviously going to be hard for them to get a driver's license. And then the bus routes. The bus routes don't expand out right now to the industrial areas of Bowling Green as much as we'd like. So out on Louisville Road, where you might find Magna or Tyson or other places, and then down to where Country Oven is on Nashville Road, and some of those other areas. You know, that is something that is, for right now, going to be, for me, dealing with new Americans that don't speak English, that don't have transportation. Transportation is going to be the #1 obstacle for getting someone placed. Language, I can make something happen there. Okay, I can place someone who speaks some English or enough English, or an interpreter. I can make things happen when it comes to language. But for transportation, that's one thing that I'm still at the mercy of the city and all the other elements that go along with that. Hygiene, you know, if you're working with a new American, again, just because I have a class with them, they may not have come through me. They may have come to Idaho and then came to the International Center 2 weeks later or a month later because their sister's cousin lives here. And now they're here with us getting service, but they may not have gotten those employment orientations that were expected at the other agency, the resettlement agency that they came through first, okay? Something else that I'm having problems with when it comes to hygiene is obviously bathroom spaces and sharing public spaces with folks. If you're not used to using the restroom in a particular way, and then you get here, it's going to take you a minute to get the etiquette for that. And if you're working with new Americans, that might be something that you might be exposed to. And that's what we're here for, is to give those supports, you know, and to be able to help with that. thinking ahead. Some of the challenges that I'm facing, because again, my job is to get folks into a job, get income coming in so that they can be independent and self-sufficient, is understanding benefits. What is maternity leave? What is vacation? I can tell them about it, but when it comes to practice and using it in their everyday life, retirement. Are you wanting to do a Roth IRA? Are you wanting to do a 401k? You can imagine how complicated it is for us here as Americans who grew up in this culture, try to explain that to somebody who is just figuring out what taxes are for the first time. And then trainings, getting folks into training so that they can get their CDLs, getting folks into training so that they, if they want to go to college, or if they want to be a CNA, or if they want to be an RN one day, what that is. And then obviously, just to move back up to driver's license, we were at, what was that called that we were at last week?
Community Partnership for Refugee and Immigrant Families.
Yes,
Rolled out
yes.
the top.
Yes, and so there was a lady there, and I think she was the solitary lady, maybe had an assistant that was responsible for helping people who speak Swahili get their driver's license. And that is really what I need. I need some kind of push to get folks to want to become more independent, because to be very frank, a lot of times with the Cuban population that we work with, they'll have family members that are here already. They'll help them get driver's license. Same thing for the Afghan population, so on and so forth. The Swahili population, they'll really struggle a little bit more. And because the resources are limited for them, and the Burmese population, sometimes they struggle a little bit more when it comes to getting driver's license. Successes. I will give flowers where flowers are due, and Purdue and Trace Diecast, when it comes to being able to transport our clients, being open to the fact that they have limited English skills, hiring interpreters for Swahili, Pashto, Burmese, Spanish, paying them a little bit more to be interpreters, putting them in positions in every shift, and creating orientations and trainings that are geared towards their language and their culture specifically, have been amazing. But I want that to happen with other employers in the community. I want that to happen with other people. If they can do it, I know the others can. They don't have to go as far as busing people from Bowling Green to Cromwell like Purdue does, but I'm grateful that they do it. But to be able to start thinking of some solutions for these so that we can get folks in, because a lot of these folks that I'm working with, they want to work. They want to get on with their lives. They want to get here, become a part of society, and live the dream that they've been told about. But the only way that I can do that is as a part of a community. I can't do that as an island unto myself. And I think that's the last slide here. So I will open up. Yeah, the last thing I always tell them is to think ahead about what you want your life to be. I tell them from the beginning, this is a partnership. I can't go to work and work for them. I can't make them go to ESL class and learn English. I can't get a driver's license for them. They have to be able to do that themselves. But I know that they can do it because there have been people who sat in the seats that they've sat in before that have done it. And so it's really just being a part of that experience with them and thinking ahead. But again, it takes a village, right? And so the International Center, we're here to help at the beginning, but it's these partnerships and these people that are in this room right now and on Zoom and the employers out in the community that really are the way that these folks are going to get pushed forward, because I'm here for the birth, but I'm not here all the time for the rest of it. These folks are only eligible to work for me for the first 5 years that they're here. After that, I have to transition them to another program. Okay. So this is when I will open up the floor to questions. I will give you a prerequisite though, is that I am still fairly new. So there may be some things that I don't know an answer to, but if you ask me and I don't know it, I will find the answer for you.
Adam, I have not really a question, but just a comment. Your presentation and your approach, it reminds me a lot of Heath Ray in that you get down to business.
Yes.
And you tell it like it is. And I think that's so important in dealing with this community, because I think as Americans, we tend to word ourselves where we're really trying to not be offensive. And this really isn't offensive. You're just giving, hey, these are the facts on hygiene. And I believe that that is the best kind of communication. Just here, here's the way it is. I'm here to support you, so excellent presentation, excellent info.
Thank you.
Good job.
Anytime
It's
anyone
Morgan County
compares me to
School.
Heath Ray, I'll take that
know.
as a compliment, Leslie.
Just
so
the
thank you
badge.
so
I thought
much.
it was hilarious, right? Mhm.
I think there's a hand up, Jessica, can't see it from my side of the room. Can you tell me?
It was a thumbs up. I mean,
Oh,
a
thumbs
thumbs
up.
up, yeah.
Okay. Amy's doing some nonverbal communication.
That's just a tremendous amount of material that you cover with them in that 4 weeks. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you went that far into depth when you said that you have to teach them about taxes if you've raised teenagers. It's the same thing, you have your teenager get a job for the first time, they've got shock from that paid taxes, what are taxes?
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
And it can become
That's wonderful.
comical because if I have a family and I have some adult children that aren't married and are single and don't have children, and I have to explain to them that you're gonna have more money taken out of your paycheck than your parents or your sister who has children, the looks on their face and the questions that they have is sometimes very comical. And sometimes I have to tell them when they ask me in-depth questions about taxes, I don't know why. This is the way it is. It's the way it is, But, and healthcare as well. That's something that's really complicated for them to understand, is the American healthcare system. That can be really challenging when it comes to them electing a health insurance plan. And just understanding how expensive healthcare can be, in the United States. Because they may have a cousin that's in Sweden and experience something very different than what they're experiencing right now.
I was thinking something similar, Shannon. I'm like, man, this is info that everybody needs to hear, but especially anybody that's getting ready to go into their first job.
Right,
Like
right.
young people, right? Like, my son needs to hear this right now. And he's already worked a job before, but there's just a lot of assumptions you make.
Uh-huh.
Or would be easy to make. But I think what happens in a lot of the rest of us that are in providers for this population is they've made mistakes, they've got themselves in the holes or they've backed themselves up against the wall. And it's something that could have been avoided, but now we're on the other side of it. Same thing happens with our justice involved population. You got caught, and now this is the repercussions and this is the fallout that happens with it. And so, but it's amazing to know that there's support.
Yeah.
Ready to receive them, and that you guys have, the clock ticks because you don't control that clock.
No.
You don't control when they're ready. And that way, it's very much like our health system. It says, you're done with your rehab.
Yeah.
Because we're done paying for it. But I don't feel ready. I don't feel like
Right.
a walk yet. Yeah, okay, but you gotta go. And that's very much what happens.
Right.
Luckily, there's support, but any rumors of these folks get everything handed to them, it's just absolutely not the case if you were in this work and saw that.
Right.
The clock starts as soon as you get them on a roster.
As soon as they get here,
Yeah,
really,
as soon as they
honestly,
get here, Yeah.
So it's in this case, of course, I'm new Americans,
Mhm.
and of course, immigration is a process. And,
Yeah.
It's a depends the person, the personality, the experience, and the goal that the challenge that they have for their life. So, and I love this city because officially there's a lot of support for new American, and the most important for me in this moment is we work as a partner.
Yeah.
So here is it's International Center, a Community Action, Refuge Bowling Green, South Central. We're working in this way. You talk about that you support and receive people from different immigration status,
Yes.
refuge, asylum, what happened with DACA, TPS, or others, or for example, with the family or family reunion, you accept this kind of group of people, or is only in one special immigration status?
So that's an immigration question, but I'll answer as much as I know, okay? So we will work with different statuses when it comes to, so you have refugee status.
Mhm.
So that might be, for example, folks that are coming from, the Congolese population, so the Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, but it also may be folks that are in Burma. So they've been in a refugee camp before they come here, so they may have refugee status. We also have folks that might have asylee or asylum status, which could be like the population from Afghanistan that we brought over here to work with. But then we also have parolee status. Now, this is where it gets complicated, and I cannot answer you the question for this, but that will be, for example, our Cuban population. A lot of them have parolee status. That status is a little bit more complicated and takes a little bit longer for them to get authorization to work, and the other documents that they may need here in the United States. Now, that's a great immigration question, and that might be something for us to have come on through before. Now, I do know in my experience, just working with clients, that the immigration department will help a lot when it comes to getting folks reunited with their families that might be waiting to get in the line to be refugee, parolee, or asylee. But that's as far as my knowledge goes, so I only want to speak on what that is.
Many times, for example, especially for Cuban
Uh-huh.
people, that they have a very special immigration status, but for example, in 6 months, maybe they have their employment permission.
Yep.
So in this case, you can support that this
Yes, yes,
participant, or you have, okay. So
yes.
it's not only at when I arrive here.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, they have, sometimes people have a different path to getting to places. And so depending on what their status is, just depends on how quickly that path is and what the process is to get folks here.
And my second question
Yes.
immediately, ESL classes is open for all the new Americans population. For example, is maybe people that arrive with DACA or TPS that receive this condition status can go and ask for ESL classes?
For my information, I have been under the impression that it's for the clients that we're working with. However, there are other ESL classes here in the community that folks that have an open door policy for anyone, I'm pretty sure. And that's documented,
Yeah.
undocumented,
The
anyone.
problem is there are many, many new American and
Yes.
maybe, adult education has not the capacity.
Yes,
And
yes.
my last question. I
Yes.
promise, This is my.
No, you're fine.
Orientation training and all the support
Uh-huh.
is offered in English, or you have interpreter, or you give this orientation training in Swahili or Burmese or Spanish?
All different languages. We have interpreters that come in and meet, and that I have an interpreter that comes in every day, and whatever language I'm working with, they will
You
be
may
there.
think it's not offered in, for example, you don't, of course, don't make in Spanish, so you use an interpreter.
I will use an interpreter. Yes. Yep.
You work with one language at a time.
No, sometimes what will have happen, if I have some Burmese folks that come in the same time as some Congolese folks, it's the same time as I might have some Cubans that may come in. In that case, I might have, it's a pretty big room. I might have someone gathered up here that's interpreting in Swahili, someone who's on the other end of the room interpreting in Spanish, and someone who's interpreting, in Burmese, and someone who's interpreting in Pashto. Like, it could be just as simple as that, as long as they get the information. That's the most important thing. So sometimes if you've ever been to the center Wednesdays, we do cultural orientation. And so ESL is completely in English, but cultural orientation will have interpreters there that is interpreting the information for them. And so you will see that there'll be different groups getting different language kind of over in each corner of the room, so that they can get the information that they need. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
You said that ESL classes are 4 weeks long. Are they longer after they gain employment and when your times change?
So my orientations are 4 weeks long. Sometimes I have to, if someone misses it or a Christmas break or something like that happens, we have to kind of move things around. But ESL classes, they're encouraged to continue to go to ESL classes even after they get a job. So a lot of times we will look for a second or a third shift job for new Americans because they're still going to doctor's appointments. Their children are still getting vaccinated or have school appointments. They're still going to ESL class that we encourage. So a lot of times, that's a great question. ESL classes will go as far through that period of time that they're eligible to go to ESL classes through the program. And again, we try to get them a job placement that's second or third shift so they can continue to go to ESL class. And just like Leslie said, when it comes to being very honest with everyone, I'm very honest with them, especially when it comes to learning English, and how important it is. And not just in everything I talk to them about, I put them through the lens of work. I say, if I have someone who's in front of me that's a new American that speaks a little bit of English and speaks no English, who's going to get the job offer? The person who's learned a little bit of English or the person who's learned no English? And I have expectations that I set for them to come to ESL class and to start learning things so that they can become, again, at the end of the day, independent and start to move through these resources and go on with their life. And I have another group that comes in and we do everything all over again. I will say, just to end the conversation about the populations that we've been working with, and Albert talked about this last week at the meeting. Albert, for anyone who doesn't know, is the director at the International Center. And he talked about how we will start to have some folks coming through from Central and South America as well coming up. So you may see an influx of those populations coming through. Guatemala, I think, is one that he mentioned specifically, El Salvador, and I think maybe Venezuela might have been the other one. So there's just different populations that you may see an influx in when it comes to who you're starting to see. I know I talked to an employer last week and she said she had 10 Venezuelans show up to apply for a job. So, you know, you may see some different populations start to show up for work as well in your different communities. And one of the Guatemalan populations that we're working with is in Barron County. So, you know, it couldn't just be, might not be just Bowling Green specific. It might be a little bit more outstretched. We try to keep everybody here in Bowling Green just because of busing people to ESL classes, all the things that we need to have, but they come in and they've got family that's already resettled here in a different county that may not be such a stretch for us. We might be able to accommodate those folks.
Amy said she'll take them all in her ESL class. right,
Okay.
Amy?
Are you looking at a potential site in Berry County?
Oh, no, I don't think any of that. But, you know, we just have to roll with the punches, you know. Anyone who's ever went to our office before on a day that we have clients there will get to witness that, that we just kind of move where it takes us and roll with the punches and get things done that we need to get done. So, but maybe in the future.
So Adam, if I could ask, like, final kind of, I don't know, we're going a little over the time. Thank you guys all for staying on, but what do you think, like, what do you think in reality, how long it really takes to get somebody work ready? I know what you have, like, what limit you're under, but what do you think, like, just since you've been doing it since October?
Yeah. So if someone asked me how long I think it really should be to prepare for someone for work, I'd love to say about 2 months. I'd love to say about 2 months. 2 months of ESL class, 2 months of going through some orientation, expanded orientations. I would say it would be.
Full time, they did that.
I think if they
All
did
day
that
long
Monday
before
through Friday for about 8 weeks or so, I think we could get people pretty ready. But I would always say to expand that timeline as much as possible, because the more time, the more ready someone will be. But you know, I'm given what I'm given and working those parameters, and we have successes. But yeah, if I had to have a magic wand to say what it would be, I'd say 2 or 3 months would be a sweet spot of being able to get someone ready. I think anytime after that, you're just really recycling information. I don't think there's anything I could really show anybody that doesn't happen in a 2-month period that I haven't already showed them. That's just my thoughts on it. Yeah.
All right, let's give her, an emoji if you're joining online. But thank you, Adam, and yeah, we'll tie it up here today, and our next meeting will be March 7th. March Madness. It's unbelievable to say I'm already saying the word March and just turned February, so. So we'll see what the weather's like March 7th. But thank you guys all for joining today, and I know Frank can probably get Adam's contact info out if anybody wants that. He's part of the partner team now. Yeah, again, thank you guys for your time. We'll be in touch. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.